Are you tired of losing money? Do you want to create a winning and transparent culture at home and in your business? The reason you may not be experiencing that is because you don't know how to have difficult conversations. And in this episode, we're going to break down the art of having difficult conversations. In this episode, we're giving you an open book test. We're giving you all of the answers. We're showing you exactly how to have tough conversations so that you can start winning in your life. We give you our 5P framework that shows you how to have tough conversations, and as an added bonus and more sauce, we role play it for you so you can see exactly how it's done so that you can remove frustration and discomfort in your life. Y'all tap in. Welcome to another edition of the Expose and Expand podcast show. I'm the man with the plan, Jeremy Mathis.
I'm Joshua. I'm going to give you the game, Mathis, and welcome to another edition of the Expose and Expand podcast show where we expose you to the ideas, the strategies, the struggles, the failures, the people, and the experiences that have gotten us from zero to millions.
A guy by the name of Peter Bromberg said, when we avoid difficult conversations, we trade short-term discomfort for long-term dysfunction. And I love that quote so much because it's true. And the reason why I know it's true because I've lived it. Every time I avoided having a tough conversation, my life was full of dysfunction, frustration, chaos. It was hectic. But when I did have tough conversations and I did not avoid the short-term discomfort, my life was better. I felt lighter. I wasn't carrying around that mental frustration. You need to understand that in life, having tough conversations is inevitable. In business and in your personal life, there's no easy way around it. If you want to grow, you're going to have tough conversations. You got to understand, the sooner you have tough conversations, the better your life will be. If you struggle with having tough conversations or you don't know how to have tough conversation, this show is going to be a huge breakthrough for you. We're going to talk about our personal experiences with having tough conversations. We're going to give you the pros and cons to having tough conversations. And then at the end of the show, because you got to watch it to the end, we're going to give you our 5P framework that breaks down and makes it very, very easy for you to have a tough conversation. Guys, are we excited about this conversation? Let's get it right into it.
No, I'm definitely excited about this conversation because this is definitely one of the biggest things that we had to learn and one of the biggest growth areas that we've experienced in business so far. And it's the art of having those difficult conversations. And the beautiful thing about that is we practice having those difficult conversations, not only in business, but also in our personal life. And in our production meeting, we was talking about when we came up with this idea, this is something that you and I both was excited about because again, like as I think about it, we struggled with this for so long. And like you said, we've caused so much long-term dysfunction and frustration in our lives because we avoided having the difficult conversations that we need to have, and we didn't know how to have those difficult conversations. So I'm super excited about this one.
Number one, like you said, we didn't know how to have it, but I think part of our problem with having tough conversations is we didn't want to hurt people's feelings. That was number one. And then number two, growing up, everybody loved the twins. Everybody rocked with the twins. And we were so used to being liked that we struggle as adults with being disliked because we thought that if you had a tough conversation with someone, they would dislike us. We thought that if we had a tough conversations with someone, we would hurt their feelings and put them in a bad position, which is something that was uncomfortable for you and I. So for the longest, like you said, we struggled with that. But I want to talk about it today because I don't want people to continue to struggle with it, and I don't want anybody to go through the mental frustration and the dysfunction that you and I had to go through. So I want to open up with asking you how did you finally overcome the struggle of having tough conversations?
Is understanding that if I truly care about the person who I need to have that conversation with, then I'm going to have that tough conversation with them. If you care about somebody and you love them and you want to see them grow and become the best version of themselves, you need to have that tough conversation, whether it's business or whether it's personal. So that's number one. And then number two, like you said, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. Me being frustrated, me being upset, me being stressed out because I'm feeling some type of way towards a person and me not wanting to have that conversation with them so I don't hurt their feelings. But once I got into that point and say, hey, look, I'm tired of being sick and tired. I'm tired of being stressed out. I'm tired of being frustrated. I'm gonna have that conversation.
That was something that was constant in our life, was constant frustration. For a long time, as I said, we struggled with it. And I want to ask you, do you remember the time when you just said, you know what, I'm going all in. Every time I need to say something, I'm going to speak my mind and I'm going to have these tough conversations. Do you remember? 'Cause
I think it's still something that I'm growing in. Like, that's not, I'm way better than I was last week. I'm way better than I was a year ago. And I'm getting more and more comfortable with having those tough conversations. And I think I want to let people know that it's okay to feel some discomfort when it's time to have those conversations. And that discomfort for me is how you grow. If you don't feel discomfort when you're doing something, you're not growing. So for me, I still have those discomfort, but at the same time, I understand the importance of having that conversation, and I'm intentional about having those conversations. What about you? Do you remember a time where
I remember, I do remember, but I just want to touch on something that you said about the discomfort. Nothing good happens in your comfort zone. Everything great happens outside your comfort zone. And that saying is so true. So many people are within their comfort zone and they're not living the life that they want to live because they're not having the conversations that they need to have. And for me, going back to your question about do I remember the time? Yes, I remember the time where I just got fed up. For the longest, we allowed people, employees, not people, we allowed employees to operate below our standard. And we didn't say anything because we were afraid to have those tough conversations. And I got to a point where I'm like, man, I know I'm supposed to be making more money in my life. I know I'm supposed to be doing more in life. I know God has a bigger purpose in life, but I also know that this roadblock that God placed in front of me, I got to get around it. I got to get through it. I got to get past it if I want to go to the next level, because part of getting to that next level in life is having those tough conversations. Like I said in the intro, it's inevitable. So I just got to a point after, like, I'm 32 now. I would say like around 31, 31, literally like a year ago, I just got fed up. Like you said, I got tired of being tired. And it just got to a point where I said, I got to speak my mind. There's no way I could continue to live in frustration when I'm paying somebody to do a job and I'm letting them operate below my standard, and that's causing me frustration. But they're not causing me the frustration. I'm causing myself the frustration because I'm not being a man. I'm not being an adult. I'm not being who I need to be. And I'm not having these tough conversations. So literally, I would say like earlier this year,
I want to, because I don't know if we did a good job of explaining to the audience what is a tough conversation. What are we talking about? We keep saying tough conversation. So before we continue the conversation, let's break that down to the audience and help them understand what we mean by a tough conversation. So guys, if you're listening to this, when we say tough conversations, I'll give you, and let's talk about it from a business perspective. So in our business, we need to have tough conversations with employees. Tough conversations are when the employee's not doing what they're supposed to do, when they're not meeting their metrics, if they're constantly late, if we have to fire them. Those are examples of tough conversations.
If they're doing stuff that we don't like that they're doing. Yeah. Because there's been times where people, where they were doing stuff, like people are in the meeting and they're not paying attention in the meeting. They're strolling social media in our meetings. And that happened a few times where people are in our meetings, they're not paying attention, they're not in the meeting. I mean, you never said anything. And we will leave the meeting and be frustrated. And like, dang, we should have had that tough conversation. So that's another example of.
And then even in your personal life, guys, some tough conversations, maybe at home with your spouse. They may be doing something that you don't like, or they may have, bad habits that you don't like. And instead of, you're just sitting there, you're not saying anything. That's a tough conversation that you need to have. You need to have tough conversations maybe with a family member who's constantly asking you for money, or who's constantly not living up to the expectation that you've set. So guys, when we say tough conversations, that is what we're referring to.
That's an underlying message for somebody. Somebody asking you for some money, Ken?
Ain't nobody asked me for no money. If they is, my answer is no.
So yeah, guys, I think Josh did a great job of helping you understand what a tough conversation is, and I want to segue into the pros. What is the benefits of having tough conversations, so people can understand why this is something that they need to do. Can you think about any benefits?
One thing that you mentioned earlier is one of the pros is you avoid long-term dysfunction. That's one of the things that you mentioned earlier at the start of the show. And for a long time, we had dysfunction in our life. We had dysfunction in our business because we avoided having those tough conversations with employees. So one of the pros of having those tough conversations is you get what you say, what you have to say, and you get it off your chest, and you're not feeling stressed out or uncomfortable about it moving forward.
Talking about just piggybacking off of what you just said about the team, it leads me to another pro, which is you create a healthy environment for your team when you have tough conversations. The way that you do that, and the reason why that happens is because if you are in a situation with your peers and everybody knows where you stand or where they stand with you, and you know where you stand with them, that is complete transparency. You operating in a different place because you know that, okay, if me and Josh are working together and he's able to be transparent with me, I've created a healthy environment because we are always being honest with one another. I'm not being so concerned with Josh's feelings, but I'm concerned about how or what's the best thing is for the organization. So I think you also create a healthy environment when you have tough conversations.
And that's one thing that's something I want to expand on, and helping people understand the importance of having that healthy environment, because energy is infectious. And if you don't have those tough conversations, the energy will be off. You're going to be frustrated with somebody who you know you need to have that tough conversation with, and they can potentially feel it. And then when the energy is off, when the environment is not healthy, you're not creating a productive environment where you can produce the results that you want in business.
Josh is speaking from experience as he said what he said, guys. And we know that firsthand because so often the energy was off in our office because us as leaders, we were dysfunctional. We didn't have those tough conversations, and we would walk around and be upset with team members and they not even know, and the energy was off. So he's speaking from experience when he's saying that, guys, and please take that to heart. But that leads me to another pro, which is everybody's operating on the same page when you have tough conversations. When you have tough conversations, everybody is rowing in the boat in the same direction. Because so often, not so often, but there's been times in our life when we've had employees that wasn't operating on the same page as us and as the other team members. We've been in situations where we've had team members that were doing their own thing and we never spoke up. Again, going back to the pro of this, when you speak up and you have these conversations with people, you get them on the same page. And when you get everybody on the same page and everybody's rowing the boat in the same direction, you get to the goal faster. So therefore, that is another reason, another benefit of having a tough conversation.
When it comes to being on the same page, when it comes to being on the same page, like how important, from our experience, how important is that? And how important has that been in our business and having everybody on the same page?
It's been extremely important to do that because just imagine in our real estate business, not even imagine this was happening. In our real estate business, we had two sales guys, and one guy, he wasn't doing what he needed to do. He wasn't operating within the rules and everything that we set, and that created dysfunction. That created something where it created some animosity with other people because one guy was doing his own thing, whereas the other guy was following the rules. And the guy that was following the rules is coming to me like, "Yo, is this what we're doing here? Is we're allowing everybody to operate and to do whatever they want to do?" And that made me understand, like, dang, we're never going to get to our goal, because if everybody's not working together, everyone achieves more, then we are hurting ourselves. So it's extremely important that everybody's operating on the same page and going in the same way.
Another pro of having those tough conversations that's in alignment with what you just said is you create a window of feedback. You want to have that window of feedback, and you want to have that window open so that your team can give you that feedback, and then you can give them feedback as well, right? Because if you learn how to have those tough conversations and you create that window of feedback, it's in alignment with what you said. We're all on the same page, right? And if there is some dysfunction, we know that window is open so that we can give the feedback to each other.
But it goes, and again, going back to the intro, the sooner you have a tough conversation, the better your life will be. Because creating that window of feedback, you want to do that early. So the first moment you see something, you need to address it. You need to have that tough conversation. That way you set the standard and everyone knows, okay, we have in this organization or dealing with this person, I know that I'm going to get feedback, because if you do it the right way, they should know that you are going to always speak up and you're never going to shy away from having tough conversations.
One thing that you said is you need to have that conversation sooner rather than later. why do you think people avoid having that conversation, that tough conversation, sooner rather than later?
They are worried about the short-term discomfort. They're worried about how they feel short-term as opposed to long-term. I was reading up on this yesterday, and so often people, they will live a life of misery because of 5 to 10 minutes of a tough environment. People are avoiding it because they're scared of people's feelings. So for me, it's people struggle. People struggle with it. That's the best way that I could put it. Any feedback on that? Because I know I didn't do a good job answering that.
No, I think like it's in alignment with what you said. It's just, one, people have that fear of being disliked by others. You know, we don't want to hurt people's feelings, so we avoid having those tough conversations. And then two, is just something that a lot of people, like you said, they struggle with. And I think the important thing, or one of the important things that people need to understand, is you need to practice having these difficult conversations. You need to be intentional about having these difficult conversations, because the more you practice it, the better you get at it, and the easier it becomes for you. And you're not sitting around waiting to have the conversation, because as you mentioned, when you first see something, you need to go ahead and address it. But what a lot of people do, and one thing that we did for a long time, was we wouldn't address it. And then it would build up the frustration. It would build up the stress that we had towards that person.
One thing Josh said that you guys need to understand, and it's so true, you got to practice this. This is not something that, for some people, it comes natural. But for most, it doesn't come natural having these tough conversations. So get in the mirror and practice. And later on in the episode, we're going to give you a framework that you could practice while you're having a tough conversations. But talking about
even before we continue, I want to dive a little deeper, because I think for us, it was a trauma in our life that avoided us from having those tough conversations, because the way we grew up was what I say goes. Yeah. You never practice, or you never had the opportunity to speak your mind. So because of that, you don't know how to have those tough conversations. And I think that was a big struggle for us growing up, because again, we was never in the environment where our parents or our family members who we were with allowed us to speak our mind and have those conversations.
No, I definitely agree with that. That trauma did negatively affect us. But talking about being negatively affected, let's go into the cons of not having tough conversations. What happens when you don't have tough conversations? And first and foremost, you lose money. When you don't have tough conversations, you lose money. And I'm speaking from experience. Even though we were making money in our real estate business, every time we avoided having those difficult conversations, we were losing money because people were not operating up to our standard. They were not doing what they needed to do to help us make even more money. So in that case, we lost money.
Even when almost every business venture we've been involved in and we didn't have those tough conversations, we lost money. Because I could think back on when we had the cleaning company. At the time, we was 22, 23-year-old kids. Our first real business that we were operating, and all of our employees were older than us, and they were the age, they could be our parents, for most of them. And we avoided having those tough conversations, and they continue to run over us. They continue to not perform, and they continue to because we didn't have those tough conversations, we got a lot of bad reviews, or we even lost business because maybe they didn't clean the office the right way, or maybe they were disrespectful towards one of the employees in the doctor's office that they were cleaning, and we avoided having those tough conversations. So guys, we've experienced this in our life with losing money because we avoided having those tough conversations.
And when I talked about losing money, I talked about the people not operating up to your standard, which leads me into my next con of not having tough conversations, which is you start to settle. You start to allow people not to uphold your standard, to not live up to your expectations. And when you settle, you're doing a disservice to yourself and to the person. The disservice that you do to yourself is that you start to operate in misery. You start to operate in stress because your standard is being lowered, all because you won't speak up. And that's something that we had to struggle with. For so long, we struggled with having people operate at the Mathis standard, at the MathisTwins standard, because of us being afraid, because of the traumas that we had in our life. So if you're listening to this episode today, guys, please do yourself and your family a huge favor and don't settle. Because when you settle, you are going to live a life of misery. You are going to live a life of regret, a life of, I wish I did this, I wish I did that. So guys, do not settle.
That's one of the things that we saw happen real in our life, real time, where when we didn't have those tough conversations, when we didn't hold people to a standard, like you said, we begin to settle. And when you settle, you're frustrated. You're not making the money that you know you're capable of making, and you just live a life of misery. Another con that I want to talk about when it comes to not having those tough conversations is, we've mentioned it several times before, but I want to bring it to the light, which is you're going to live a life of long-term discomfort, a life of long-term frustration, because you are avoiding having those tough conversations. So you're going to have that stress, that's sitting there. That stress is going to sit there. That frustration is going to sit there because you are avoiding having those tough conversations. And when you avoid having those tough conversations and it creates that stress and frustration, that can lead to health problems as well.
It can, and it will lead to health problems, not only in your own life, but also in the life of those surrounded by you. And I'm, again, speaking from experience. When I didn't have a tough conversation, I had that stress and that frustration sitting there, and I carried that from the office to my home. We had episodes where I've talked about where I raised my voice at my wife. I raised my voice at my kids. I raised my voice at Josh and others that I was close to, because nothing that they did, it was because I wasn't being who I needed to be. I wasn't talking and letting people know how I felt. So I would go home to people that I felt comfortable with, and all that stress, that anxiety, that frustration that I let sit there, I spewed it out onto my family, which is not fair to them. So that's another con, that if you don't have these tough conversations, you're going to find yourself letting it sit there and then taking that and giving it to somebody else that didn't deserve it.
And you unknowingly create chaos, like you said, in your life. You create chaos in your life when you don't have those tough conversations. Like you said, an example you just gave about business, where an employee may have done something that we don't like. An employee have done something that upsetted us. And instead of having that tough conversation with the employee, we take it home, and our family has to feel that wrath, and that's not fair to them. So
upset it. That's a word. Upset it. That's a word. There you go making him up
Come
again.
on, man. But it makes sense, though. The people know what I'm talking about. The people know what I'm talking about.
So let's give the people actionable step or something that they can do to practice having a tough conversations. What we did was come up with what we call our 5P framework of helping people have tough conversations. And we're going to break down this framework. This framework can be used in business. This framework can also be used in your personal life when you have tough conversations. If you follow it, I guarantee, I don't guarantee a lot, but I guarantee this will make it so much easier for you, because I've used this so often in the business this entire year to have tough conversations. So the 5P frameworks is permission, probing, positive, problems, and proactive. So the first P is permission. You want to ask permission to the person that you're about to have a tough conversation with. You want to ask them, hey, can I have a transparent conversation with you and give you feedback? You want to set the stage, and you want to get their mind prepared for the conversation that you guys are about to have. If they say yes, that means that they're ready to have the conversation. That means that you've opened their mind up to receive what you're about to give.
Now, even before we continue, so if I ask permission to someone and I'm like, yo, I want to have a conversation with you, and they say no, what is my next step?
If somebody was to say no when you ask conversation, well, hey, let's schedule a time. I think it's schedule a time because you don't want to avoid it. Let's schedule a time when is it more convenient for you, and then you schedule a time with them. So after you ask permission, the next thing you want to do is what we call a probe. That's the next P. You want to ask them about what's going on in their personal life. You want to see if what's going on in their personal life may be affecting them at work, or maybe affecting them, or vice versa. If you're having a personal conversation with your significant other, you want to probe and ask if something is going on at work. Hey, is everything okay? Is everything okay with you mentally? Because their personal issues or work issues may be coming into your household, or if you're at work, their personal issues may be coming into the office. So you want to probe just to see what could potentially going on and that's causing the issues, right? After you probe, then you want to come with some positives. You want to help people understand what they have done that you like. what are some things that what are some things that they've done that have been good for you and to you, and you let them know, hey, I like that. I like how you did this. I like this. I like that. You want to give some positive to the conversation. Now, after you go to the positives, the next P, or the fourth P, is problems. Problems are things that need to be addressed. The reason why you need to have the tough conversations. You want to go through these problems and help them understand what needs to be fixed. What issues are you having with them? And the biggest point here, huge tip, when you're talking about problems, you need to have concrete examples. We're speaking from experience. Because for us, when we before we created this framework, we would have tough conversations, and then people would call us out. Okay, give me an examples, and we wasn't prepared. We didn't have any examples. So when you're bringing problems, you want to make sure you have concrete examples. And then the last P of the 5P framework is proactive. This is where you set the expectations for what you want in the future, what you want moving forward, and as simple as, hey, I need this to happen, and if this doesn't happen, then here's the result. So,
that was really good job of breaking it down and helping people understand that 5P framework. But one thing that you said, guys, I want to make sure that you guys understand this point is you want to have examples of what the problem is, because as Jeremy alluded to, we've had several conversations, tough conversations, and we didn't have the examples that we needed to back up the claim or the statement that we were trying to make, and in turn, it just made the person not receive what it is that we were trying to give them. So you want to make sure you have a few examples of the problem that you're addressing with that person. That was key.
I think if we really want to help the audience, I want to do a little role play.
Okay.
I'll be the person that's having a tough conversation with you. All right.
And then I'm the person, just so the audience is clear, I'm the person who has the issue.
Yeah. You're being the issue. You are the issue, right?
Got you.
So this is Germ. I'm the one that's going to be the one that's having a tough conversation and going through the framework. Hey, Josh, man, do I have your permission to have a transparent conversation with you and to give you some feedback?
Yeah, what's up? Talk to me.
Okay, so before we even get into the conversation, I want to ask you, man, is anything going on at home that we need to know about?
Well, we just moved, and that's been very frustrating, and we've been trying to also get pregnant and have a baby, and it just is not happening. So it's been frustrating for me and for my wife as well.
Wow, man, I'm so sorry to hear that. I can only imagine, man. Y'all got a lot going on, from trying to have a kid and then moving. And I can only imagine moving with a couple kids, how difficult that is, packing up, finding a place to move to, and all of that. I'm sure that's caused you a lot of anxiety and frustration.
Yeah, man, it really has. There's been a lot of sleepless nights, and just trying to hold it all together, man.
Got you. Okay. Well, I got to say that I like the energy that you bring to the office. I like how you always come with different ideas and how you always help people on the team. You're very, very good at that. But one of the things that I wanted to address was I'm starting to notice a lot of mistakes, and that could be because of what's happening in your personal life. But you messed up on the Excel spreadsheet that I had to send to our investors. I don't know. I emailed you that about 2 weeks ago, and then just recently on another report, you messed up on something. It was a small error, but it was an error that affected the numbers. So I need you to fix that. And I understand you have a lot going on, but we're moving in a great direction in the company. We don't want to slow down our momentum. So I need you to do better.
Man, thank you for bringing that to my attention. And as I just mentioned, man, there's a lot going on in my personal life, but I'm a professional, and I know I should not allow it to interrupt with what's going on in the business, and that's something that I definitely will work on. My ask to you is just, over the next 30 to 60 days, if you see anything else that you don't like, just bring it to my attention, please.
I definitely will. I thank you for making this conversation easy for me. Thank you for taking accountability. I truly appreciate it. But man, let's just keep going. And if you need any help at home, if you need help with anything, definitely let me know. We're here to help you. Okay.
Hey, thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
So guys, it's just that simple, and that's how you guys can see that in that conversation, I address every part of the 5 Ps. I asked for permission. I probed to see what was going on. I gave him some positives. I told him I like what he does. I told him about the problems and the issues, and then I was proactive. Like, man, this needs to change. So that's a simple way to do it. And before we end the conversation, I want to give people just a couple of tips when they're having tough conversations.
And then even before we give them the tips, the one point I want to make is, guys, I know we just made that role play seem simple. You may have some people that you're going to have those tough conversations with, and they may rebuttal you, or they may give you some objections and say, hey, they feel differently about it. Guys, just control yourself. Remember that you are in control. Control your emotions, and understand that you're having this there's a reason on why you're having that conversation. So just make sure that you guys, hold yourself to the standard, and don't get out of character if somebody responds in a way that you may not like when you're having that tough conversation.
My God, here we go again. Differently.
Yeah.
Come on, that boy, you. Hey, I don't know if you giving game anymore. Your name should be Josh. I make up words, Mathis.
Hey, they sound good, so that's all that matters.
But let's get back to the tip. So tip number 1, when you're having a tough conversation, do it at the right time. Yeah. Make sure it's the right time to do it. Don't do it at when somebody's just getting off of a phone call or they are just coming into the office. You got to find the right time to have that tough conversation, and that's not something that we can answer for you. Just understand that you need to have it at the right time.
And people is back to that point, is there's a time and a place for everything. So understand, as Jerm just mentioned, you want to do it at the right time and at the right place. You want to ensure that you do it at a time where that person may not have, their guard up, right? So that's important.
Another tip is don't wait too long to do it. Like I said, again, going back to the intro, the sooner you do it, the better your life will be. If you continue to wait, you build up frustration, you build up more stress, and it becomes tougher for you. So the sooner you do it, the better your life will be and the easier it'll be. So do it immediately. Don't wait. Anything to add there?
No, like you said, is don't wait, because you want the feelings to be fresh, and then you also want the examples to be fresh as well, because you don't want somebody to do something and you need to have that conversation, and 2-3 weeks later, you forget about what happened, or they may even forgot about what has happened. But yes, that is key. You definitely want to get it done as soon as possible.
The next tip is don't be passive aggressive. Get to the point. Say what you have to say. Because if being passive aggressive is not going to help anybody, it will make the situation even worse, and it'll make the conversation confusing. So do not be passive aggressive.
I agree 100%, and from experience, we've tried to have those tough conversations, and we were passive aggressive, and we didn't get the result that we wanted, right? The person who we may have had that conversation with didn't understand what it is that we were saying. So like you just said, just get straight to the point. To the point. Don't be rude, but be blunt and say what you mean and mean what you say.
Facts. And the last tip that we have is bring examples. We touched on it and when we talked about the 5P framework, but I want to reemphasize, make sure you have examples of the problems. You want to have concrete examples. Take it from us. We came and we have these conversations. We didn't have examples for people, and it blew up in our face. So make sure you have examples when you're having these tough conversations.
You summed it up well.
Anything else you want to add to the topic?
Man, this has been a great episode, and I think the people have got some game.
Nah, I definitely agree. Guys, if you guys have enjoyed this episode, please be sure to share it with someone. And remember, we have our gentleman's agreement. Our gentleman's agreement is, if you're watching on YouTube, go and click that subscribe button and leave us a comment. Let us know what you like and what you didn't like. And then if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or one of the other podcast players on the audio version, make sure you hit that follow button for the Expose and Expand podcast show. Leave us a 5-star review and leave us a comment. We want to know how we can grow. We want to know what you took away from this episode. And again, guys, share this episode with somebody so that they can overcome the obstacles that we've had to encounter with having tough conversations. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Expose and Expand. Peace.
Expose and Expand. Peace.